heard of the Coyote tick, but have you ever heard of the Coyote knock? Well, let me show you a little something about it here. This is something I've seen several times on the Coyote platform. The Coyote, if you didn't know, has very small roller rockers that sit up top under the camshaft. Under those rocker arms are a very small tappet, and occasionally what can happen is the needle bearings on the roller part, the actual rocker assembly, will wear out. That is exactly what happened in the case of this truck. You can see here I've done stripped this thing down. We are actually pulling the camshafts out because that is how you remove those roller followers. Now this 5-liter here in particular had 180,000 miles on it, and as you can see, it was definitely not caused by a lack of maintenance, but this can be something that is accelerated by a lack of maintenance. You can see the lobes on this camshaft ate up pretty good. We're going to be replacing these camshafts with some new Ford OEM camshafts. Another odd thing about these Coyotes is generally when I see one roller fail, I will see multiple rollers fail. You can see this is two separate camshafts. Both had wear on the lobes. Both had failed roller followers. You can see the little needle bearings here where the roller will push down, and basically the lobe will just roll over into the actual body assembly of the rocker instead of hitting the roller. There you can see the little tappet, and side-by-side comparison of how much higher that roller is stuck up. That's because the bearing assembly is bad. So we are going to be replacing all of the rollers and all of the lifters and both camshafts on this truck, but this truck in particular was actually a lot vehicle back when I worked at the dealership and didn't really want to spend any more money than we had to. So unfortunately for whoever bought this thing, we did reuse the cam phasers, solenoids, timing chains, guides, all of those parts. There wasn't anything wrong with them, but if this was something a customer was actually paying for, I would have highly recommended replacing those parts while we were in there. So we got our new rollers and our new lifters soaked up in that oil bucket there with that used engine oil we like to get out of people's vehicles, and we're installing them back into the head. You can see I had to go incognito with my headphones on here because I got tired of people asking me questions about stuff that didn't involve this Coyote I was working on. This is how mechanics make mistakes, so you have to go incognito sometimes. Shout out to Apple for these $600 headphones, and shout out to you people on YouTube for paying for those bad boys. And here we have the Stage 3 OEM Ford cams going back in. You can see how shiny they are. That's definitely going to add a few horsepower to this engine. One weird thing about the failure with these rockers and these tappets on the Coyote is generally I always see the problem with the driver's side head and not the passenger. I don't know why that is exactly, but I've never actually seen any of these parts fail on the passenger side. It's generally always the driver. I will say when it actually comes to working on one of these engines, this 5.0 Coyote is 100 times easier to work on than the 3.5 EcoBoost. The 3.5 just has charge pipes and coolant pipes and turbos in places that are just all up in my way of accessing any kind of internal engine parts. The Coyote here is pretty simple. Like I said, this is about a day job here you see going on. If this was my personal vehicle, like I said, if this was something I was doing for myself, I would have 100% replaced the rollers and the tappets on the driver's side and passenger side head, along with replaced the VCT solenoids, the cam phasers, and probably went on and done a timing set while I was there. Like I said, this engine had about 180,000 on it. This is the first time it had ever been into. Come in with this tapping noise and had multiple failed rollers. I don't know if this is something that had been happening for a long period of time. It was actually a truck that got traded in like this. It got traded in with the engine issue. I really don't want this video to scare you guys because I'm telling you, this is not a super common problem on the 5.0 Coyote. I see tons of other issues like water pumps, VCT solenoids, even something as simple as a spark plug happening before this. This is not something that happens a lot, but it is something that I've seen happen enough times now that I'm making a video for you guys. Like I said, I want you to be aware of this popping noise through the valve cover. It can be identified very easily by removing that valve cover and looking at your cam lobes. If your roller has failed, all of that wear is going to be translated over to the camshaft lobe, so make sure you're looking at those really well. One very solid plus about the 5.0 Coyote when compared to pretty much everything else Ford makes is that this front cover actually has gaskets in it. It's kind of a crazy thing. Ford uses silicone on pretty much everything they do, so you got to clean it off, make sure it's clean when it goes back on, re-silicone it, make sure it doesn't get rubbed off of there whenever you put it back up. it's really, really aggravating dealing with that silicone. So that's one huge plus for me about the 5.0 Coyote is this front cover has gaskets. The only place we have to apply silicone is right where the seams, the cylinder head, and the oil pan are, and we can snap it back up there. We don't have to worry about bumping it on something and knocking that silicone off. So I really, really, really like that about the 5.0 Coyote. Just be happy that you're not buying an entire engine, because if this would have been a GMLT engine, you'd probably be putting an entire engine assembly in at this point. So just be happy that you bought a Ford and not something that needs major repairs all the time, you know. And if you're wondering why in the case of this engine I did not remove the cab, that's because a lot of the time I don't really remove the cabs on the 5-liter. They're, like I said earlier, pretty easy to work on. Unless you're removing something like a cylinder head or an entire engine assembly, it just doesn't really make logical sense to remove the cab. It's generally just quicker to go ahead and do that work over on your stomach. You know, you flop out on your belly. Just be sure to lay your pillow down so that hood prop doesn't castrate you or poke you in the belly button too many times. Most of the vehicles I've seen with this issue have had over 160, 170,000 miles on them, so it's not something that you're gonna have to worry about early in the life of the engine. Now, the cost of this repair is honestly gonna depend a lot upon what you replace. Like I said earlier, in the case of this one, we only replaced what actually needed to be replaced. You could go above and beyond here. You could do all 4 camshafts, you know, all the rollers, all the tappets, all the phasers, guides, tensioners, chains, you know, the list goes on and on what we could do. So the repair cost is gonna definitely vary, but as far as labor, I would expect to see pricing for this job somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500. Now you know everything that you need to know about the 5.0 Coyote knock issue that I showed you here in this video. This pretty much is gonna wrap us up for this one. As always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace. Woo-woo.